All right, let's get right into this explainer. Today, we're doing a dark, gritty autopsy of a truly merciless battlefield. We're looking closely at the events documented in the 50th Chronicle of the Gnoll's Bane. Now, fair warning, this isn't some tale of glorious, shining victories. We're getting a boots-on-the-ground look at the bloody, exhausting aftermath of Irondale. We're going to examine exactly how the survivors of a brutal medieval clash managed to pick up the pieces, and how one solitary warrior steps directly into the abyss. Picture this. The portal snaps shut. For just a few lingering seconds, the battlefield of Irondale is still echoing with the absolute nightmare of medieval warfare, the clanging of heavy steel, the desperate shouting of orders, the groans of wounded soldiers in the mud. But then, dead silence. And that is exactly where our source material drops us. It perfectly captures the grim reality of the aftermath. Taelanor is just standing there, totally alone. The battered body of General Durog is lying dead in the dirt. The Gnoll's Bane, that battle-hardened mercenary crew, has escaped, and they took the corrupted hero Henrik Featherstep with them. It's this chilling portrait of a blood-soaked arena that's been totally stripped of its adrenaline, leaving nothing but the dead and the one guy who stayed behind. While that silence, it doesn't last very long. Suddenly, the heavy, enormous beating of wings sends these massive gusts of wind rolling right across the arena. A giant cloaker descends from the sky, carrying Tamakti, and when Taelanor gives him the grim after-action report that Durog is dead and Henrik is gone, Tamakti's reaction is immediate. It's desperate. He just says, "We must go to Uzgul. Now." You see, there is literally no time to mourn the dead or bury the fallen. This sudden urgency just thrusts us straight into the next terrifying phase of this war.
Which brings us to Section 1, Descent to Uzgul.
So our narrative takes us on this intense, physical descent into a world beneath the world. For hours, Taelanor and Tamakti fly on the back of this massive beast through a completely hostile alien environment. And we aren't just talking about a dark, damp cave system here. We're looking at towering mushroom forests lost in this cavernous darkness, winding purple rivers, the whole shebang. It's a bioluminescent ecosystem that looks gorgeous, but is incredibly deadly. The Chronicle describes this one moment where these fish-like humanoids cautiously poke at some softly glowing orange mushrooms with wooden spears. The second a spear touches the growth, a huge explosion just tears through the cavern, instantly maiming the creature and shattering solid wood to splinters. It really drives home how lethal this ecosystem is. The environment itself is literally a weapon. And deep within this lethal wilderness, they finally find their destination. But Uzgul's stronghold isn't some traditional medieval fortress. There are no stone walls, no iron gates, no wooden doors to knock on. It is an enormous, colossal formation of black ice and obsidian just violently erupting from the cavern floor, with jagged spires thrusting out in every direction. It doesn't look like anything built by mortal hands, you know? It looks more like a colossal spear struck the earth from the heavens and simply froze the second it hit. It is architecture born entirely out of violence. Moving on to Section 2, The Price of Blood. While Taelanor is plummeting into the dark, the rest of the survivors make it back to the political reality of Hammerdeep, where survival comes with a staggering price tag: 35,000 gold pieces. The Gnoll's Banes stand before King Dornick's stone crown, laying out all the terrible truths they uncovered at Irondale. They exposed Uzgul's army, the monstrous experiments, the planned invasion of Hammerdeep itself. And the king? He honors their original contract of 25,000 gold, but then he adds another 10,000 on top. That is the sheer weight of blood money. It's an absolute fortune, awarded not just for scouting, but for surviving the impossible. It's a very gritty reminder that in this world, intelligence and simply staying alive has a very steep, very literal price tag. With their pockets heavy, these exhausted veterans do exactly what seasoned fighters have to do. They gear up for the next fight. Hammerdeep throws open its armories for them. For a fleeting moment, no one is actually trying to kill them. Okazaki replaces and upgrades his battered medieval armor. Cedric opts for some lighter protection and grabs a new staff. Thane secures this totally unique custom weapon. They're just wandering the stores, repairing broken gear, replacing supplies. They get to enjoy this strange temporary luxury of preparing for danger without the danger literally breathing down their necks. But as we know, physical survival is only half the battle. Let's look at that other half in Section 3, The Scars of the Mind. Let's pivot from the steel and armor to the deep, lingering psychological toll of this conflict, focusing squarely on the comatose hero, Henrik Featherstep. Cedric is desperate to heal his father, so he takes matters into his own hands. When traditional healing magic and divine prayers completely fail to wake Henrik, Cedric probes with his own magic. And what he finds is deeply unsettling. The residual magic clinging to Henrik feels entirely foreign to the world itself. Alien. Wrong. It's a chilling reminder that the deepest wounds from this kind of warfare aren't the physical cuts. They're the unnatural infections of the mind. Cedric actually manages to break through that fading corruption, and Henrik finally wakes up. What follows is this incredibly tragic mapping of how a great hero's mind actually collapses. It wasn't just a sudden, cartoonish turn to evil. Day 1, he's captured. By day 3, he's subjected to an apocalyptic vision, this hellish, blazing demon descending to literally burn civilization to ash. Over the following weeks, Gnoll weaponizes the crippling terror of total isolation. Henrik's corruption was a methodical, tragic breakdown where he slowly convinced himself that committing terrible acts was somehow justified if it prevented that greater, blazing doom. And this brings us to the heartbreaking climax of this father-son reunion. Cedric looks at his dad, the man whose name is practically synonymous with goodness across all the kingdoms, and just strips away all the excuses. He asks the ultimate devastating question, how did you fall so far? And Henrik? He has no grand defense, no claim to some secret righteousness. His face just collapses, and he cries. He is forced to admit his utter despair. At the end of the day, he surrendered because he was terrified.
And man, this is where the chronicle really twists the knife. Henrik's deepest fear was that the realms of the world would never unite. He firmly believed that when the demon finally came, the kingdoms would fight alone, and they would die alone. That is why he gave up. But the bitter irony here, the grim reality, is that his own son had already pulled off the impossible. Humans and dwarves, the soldiers of Hammerdeep and the Crystal Kingdom, had already marched through the portal at Irondale, shedding blood side by side. Henrik gave up his soul to save a divided world, entirely blind to the fact that his son had already forged the exact alliance he thought was impossible.
Let's step into our final act, Section 4, Hunting the Dark Eye. With father and son finally reconciled, these fractured survivors make a crucial pivot. They decide they're done being hunted prey. They're going to become proactive hunters. The Gnoll's Bane gather around for drinks. For the first time in weeks, they actually laugh. But the specter of Gnoll is still hanging heavily over them. They know that as long as he's beneath that mountain, another army is going to rise and another Irondale is going to burn. So they formulate a new tactical plan. They start mapping out the subterranean routes, looking at how to secure their new interkingdom allies, requisitioning specialized weapons, and pooling all their magical intel. They make a definitive choice. They are no longer waiting for the dark to come to them. The next time they enter the depths, they're going in to cut off the head of the snake.
But right as they're planning, we smash cut back to Talinor, who is already deep in that darkness. Tamakti's cloaker dives straight down into the obsidian spear, plunging Talinor into a pitch-black void. At first, he hears this low, gentle, almost comforting whale song. It actually stirs something deep in his memory. But then, this terrifying sensory shift happens. The melody just stops dead. A new presence enters the space. It's described as sweetness covering rot.
And from within that absolute darkness, a single eye opens, followed by a twisted smile that is just far, far too wide. And a voice echoes right out of the void. It is time we finally met. It's an incredibly chilling conclusion to this chronicle. Up above, the Gnoll's Bane are bravely drawing their maps and sharpening their steel, planning to hunt a monster. But we have to ask ourselves, how can mortal men in armor, swinging steel, ever hope to fight an ancient, alien intelligence that is already sitting in the pitch black, just patiently waiting for them? Really, what hope does any mortal army have against the dark itself? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I will leave you to ponder exactly that.